Hi folks, Chris Rich here. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of investing as if the markets are efficient. This video is on investment principle number 9 of 27 investment principles every investor should know. These investment principles are all time-tested, backed by economic and financial science. I've broken them down into bite-sized digestible pieces, easy to implement and understand. Over the last 30 years, I've helped hundreds of people implement these principles into their life. I've seen these principles work firsthand. I know they can make a real difference in your life, and I highly recommend you incorporate these investment principles into your investment life. Now, the efficient market hypothesis is an investment theory primarily derived from the concepts attributed to Eugene Fama. His research was detailed in his book titled Efficient Capital Markets, a Review of Theory and Empirical Work. There's a mouthful. The book was published in 1970. Fama put forth the basic idea that it's virtually impossible to consistently beat the market. Virtually impossible to make investment returns that outperform the overall market average as reflected by a major stock market index, such as the S&P 500. Now, according to Fama's theory, while an investor might get lucky and buy a stock that brings him or her huge short-term profits, over the long term, investors cannot realistically hope to achieve a return on investment that is substantially higher than the market average. The empirical research into investor returns have made a very strong case for the efficient market hypothesis. Also, take into consideration that Eugene Fama was awarded a Nobel Prize in economic science for his research and work. Let's take a look at how an efficient market works. Now imagine that you're at a neighbor's garage sale. You notice that there's a Babe Ruth rookie baseball card. It's priced at 25 cents. Obviously, your neighbor is not a big baseball fan, since the card is literally worth tens of thousands of dollars. Just as you're about to hand over a quarter, another neighbor walks up. She also knows the value of the card, and she's willing to spend $25. Pretty soon, you and your neighbor are having a bidding war until the price you pay for the card is close to its actual value. And it only took one additional participant to get there. Financial markets work similarly on a much larger scale, with millions of investors buying and selling securities each day to determine the fair market value. Now, the efficient market hypothesis is exactly that. It's a hypothesis. It's not a theory. The reason for that is it's impossible to prove, and it's also impossible to disprove. However, the empirical evidence strongly suggests that markets are efficient. Let me give you a real-life example. Let's go back to the year 1986, 34 years ago. The Space Shuttle Challenger exploded just a few seconds after takeoff. If you were alive at that time, you probably remember watching it on TV. It was a real tragedy. The official investigation didn't start for 3 months after the explosion, and the investigation took several years to complete. However, within 8 minutes of the explosion, the financial world knew which supplier was responsible for the faulty part. If you look at the stock prices, all of the major suppliers to NASA almost immediately dropped after the explosion. 8 minutes later, the company responsible for the faulty part dropped through the floor. The other suppliers regained some value. Folks, this was 34 years ago. Cell phones were not around. They were rare. The internet wasn't even considered at that time. If you were really important, you had a pager that you wore on your belt. Now consider how efficient the markets had to be to figure out which part and company was responsible for that explosion within 8 minutes. That's pretty amazing, folks. The official investigation didn't end for several years, and the stock market knew which part was responsible within 8 minutes of the explosion. This is a great example of how efficient the stock market is. Now, there's obviously a lot of people that want to argue with the efficient market hypothesis. The evidence is stacked against them. The science and research behind the efficient market hypothesis is very deep, and it can be extremely confusing. Most people throw their hands in the air and say, "Oh, it's too confusing." Folks, this is your financial security that we're talking about. It's important. And you don't have to understand all the science and math that supports the efficient market hypothesis. The long-term evidence points to the fact that active investors don't beat the market indexes. Paul Samuelson, another Nobel Prize winner in economics, put it this way: those who disagree with market efficiency simply assert that it stands to common sense that greater effort to get facts and greater acumen in analyzing those facts will pay off in better performance. Folks, by this logic, a cure for cancer must have been found by 1955. We know for certain this hasn't happened. Folks, put the empirical evidence on your side. Invest as if the markets are efficient. If you found value for yourself in this video, share it with someone you think could benefit from it. You may also want to check out some of my other videos and hit the subscribe button to be notified when future content becomes available. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.